Living God, we come before you in honor of the life and legacy of Joseph Lee Heywood, a man whose life and death was characterized by bravely putting the well-being of others before himself. We also remember and appreciate the life of Nicholas Gustafsson, a young new immigrant just beginning to learn a new culture and language when his life was taken violently. Though less known by us, he is completely known and valued by you. Loving God, like Joseph Heywood before us, give us wisdom to discern what is the right thing to do and the conviction and courage to act. Help us to translate all that we feel and think about making the world better to actually being good neighbors to those around us. We thank you that you are a faithful God and that where you call us, you will equip us. Give us eyes to see your love in our lives that we may be transformed by it and then compelled to love others. Give us an awareness of your grace in our lives, one that strengthens and drives us to always prioritize mercy over judgment. Uphold us with your strength in our places of weakness. Surround us and fill us with your peace. You are our assurance in the face of the unknown. You are our hope and the anchor of our souls. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I'm Clarice Graybaugh, Northfield City Council Mayor Pro Tem. This year we're taking the opportunity to honor the many Northfield individuals and organizations that have risen to the challenge of the current COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you to all of our essential workers, our healthcare workers, public servants, teachers, nonprofits and businesses working through the pandemic together. Your diligent work continues the long-standing tradition of Northfielders working together for the common good, not unlike the many townspeople like Joseph Lee Haywood on that day in 1876. The challenge is not over, nor is the selfless dedication shown by all of Northfield. Thank you to everyone who is continuing to support them and make their jobs easier by making the necessary sacrifices to meet this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to be here. We'll see if I can read these notes before they melt in the rain. So I would tell you in advance is that this will be brief. So if you think I'm ramping up to a big long speech, I'm not. But thank you so much. I do appreciate how many folks have decided to come out in this weather and be here. I had a colleague a number of years ago that grew up in Raleigh, Durham, but spent most of his adult life in Minnesota and Colorado. And I asked him at one point what the difference was between, the Midwest and Colorado and where he grew up. And he said primarily, because I thought it was going to be about Southern culture and all that, and he said primarily it's weather. He said if there's 3 flakes of snow in Raleigh, they cancel school. If it's gloomy, everybody goes home early from work. He said in Minnesota and Colorado, you just all got together as a culture and decided that you weren't going to let the weather push you around, and you weren't going to change your life because the weather got crummy. So good on all of you. So as I was thinking about this, I was thinking a little bit about what these different years meant. We remember years like 1876 for the reason we're here today, and 1914 and 1939 and 1964 and 2001, usually connected with bad stuff. But I suspect 2020 is going to be one of those years as well. As we think about what happened here in Northfield in 1876 and what's happening with the pandemic right now, I think there's some common links. And one of them that I would suggest is that most of the time when we come out the other side of these things, what we are left with is that regular people, regular folks, regular citizens were the people that made the biggest difference. Mr. Haywood did a heroic act, but he was just a regular citizen who recognized what was at stake. There wasn't any insurance on people's accounts. There wasn't any social safety net, and he and others recognized that the people of their town counted on what they did next. One of my favorite film documentaries was the Ken Burns one on World War II, and particularly the Minnesota connections, where they're interviewing all these people that were these farm kids that were milking cows and doing chores with their family, and 8 weeks later were on a boat headed to the other side of the planet to save the world. It's always, I think, regular folks that save the world. It was great to have Churchill, and it was great to have Roosevelt, but these farm kids and their equivalents around the world and around the country were the people that did that. This pandemic has been a little unlike other things. It's a little unlike situations like 9/11, where a big thing happens all at once and it's very condensed. This is much more of a slow motion car accident. The people that have responded to this are doing a quiet, everyday marathon of activity. The medical professionals, the doctors and nurses and pharmacists, changed their lives in significant ways to respond to what was happening. And if you remember, way back when this started, we didn't really know how this worked exactly. We didn't know how you got it. We didn't know how contagious it was. We didn't know if you could touch the wrong thing. These people often slept in their basements, away from their families, and did a variety of other things. In addition to the docs and nurses and others, especially in hospitals, there's a whole slew of other people that make this work. There's people that cook the food, and there's people that clean the rooms, and there's people that answer the phones. They are all-day, everyday operations. And these people made the same sacrifices and took the same risks. When I was in graduate school, I was compelled to read a book by a guy named Stephen Carter. I looked for it today to see if I could find it so that I quoted it right. And I couldn't find it, so some of this might be confabulation, but here's what I remember. He wrote a book called Integrity, and one of his definitions of integrity was, integrity is doing the right thing when it might cost you something. Most of the time when we do the right thing, people applaud us and say, good on you for doing it. Both in 1876, when bad guys came to town, and this year during this pandemic, when we ask people to put themselves and their families at risk, we're asking people to do the right thing in an environment where it might cost them something. So healthcare workers in particular are among this group of people that I think demonstrate this. So in this way, and I suspect others, the selfless citizens of 1876, including Mr. Heywood, have a connection across the decades to the Northfield citizens of this moment. Regular folks doing remarkable things. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think it's almost always true that the things that we take time to remember are the things that retain their importance. Again, thank you so much.
As both Clarice and Steve had talked about, as well as Julia, we're here today to honor one of our heroes here in Northfield, Joseph Lee Haywood, who put his life on the line, knowing that refusing to give the money to the Jesse James gang, and probably knowing at that moment his life could end, and it did. 2020 has been a different year and a different challenge for us as a Jesse James Days committee. It's been a different year and a different challenge for people in general. And, every year we do a Joseph Lee Haywood Award recipient. And really this year, our recipients are your everyday people, your first responders, your grocery store workers, your police officers, your firefighters, your retail workers, your truck drivers, and everybody else. A lot of those people rose to the occasion for the 2020 pandemic. And, the unfortunate part is, in the past, some of those workers were never looked upon highly. Your convenience store workers, your grocery store workers, so on and so forth. Some of your hospital aides or your nursing home workers, or But we surely found out how important that those people are to our communities. You know, they were there for all of everybody, stocking the shelves in the grocery store, taking care of loved ones at the hospital or at the nursing home, putting themselves on the front line, the police officers, the firefighters, such as Joseph Lee Haywood did back in 1876. And so there are some parallels when we look at 1876 to 2020, as well as the other pandemics, you know, the Spanish flu and so on and so forth, and, you know, the world wars. People rise to the occasion, such as Joseph Lee Haywood did in 1876. We as a community are in this together. We've risen to the occasion, and so it's an interesting parallel when we look at things. We don't know the outcome. We hope a vaccine is created and that we can put an end to this, and everybody can go on living life the way it is. But I think we've all learned some lessons in life during this pandemic of how we have to do things differently in our own personal lives, in our work lives, and our Jesse James Day celebration life. It's not normal, a normal celebration. We had to figure out how do we make this different and make it work for the community. And we came up with some great ideas and a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and so we're going to make it work. But reflecting back on Joseph Lee Haywood, you know, it was a fateful day, and unfortunately his life was taken. He was an outstanding community member. So with that, I'm going to read off some we're going to ask for one. I'm going to do the roll call of honor, and with that we have past Distinguished Haywood Service Award recipients, and then we have various committee members that are not listed that had passed throughout the years that were hardworking members of the Defeated Jesse James Days Committee. So in memory, we start off with Nicholas Gustafsson, who got caught up in the gunfire as a citizen of Northfield, a Swedish immigrant to Northfield. And there's parallels to that as we see immigrants moving into Minnesota and moving into Northfield to start their new lives. And, you know, unfortunately, he got caught up in the gunfire and became a victim of that unfortunate day. So we honor his memory as well today. But we'll go on to the Distinguished Service Award recipients who have passed. Robert Shumway being the first award recipient, I believe. Was that correct? No, he wasn't. Well, he was one of them. Robert Shumway owns the First National Bank. And so Robert Shumway, Paul Johnson, Gina North Perman, Sanford Haugen, Shirley Nelson, Mary Lou Street, Maggie Lee, Bernie Hughes, Carl Rovog, Don McCrae, Dan Freeman, Dorothy Schilling, Donald Lindbergh, Gene Finger, and Molly Worland. All of these people played a role in our community in one shape or another, volunteering in organizations, building business owners who were involved in many generous and giving ways to the community. So we honor them today as well as Joseph Lee Haywood and Nicholas Gustafsson. We honor them and thank them for the services that they have provided to this community. We also, our past committee members who have passed that were hardworking members, to them and their families, we appreciate everything that you were a part of in our celebration and our community. So with that, we would like to take a moment and pause a moment of silence when you leave at the grave of Nicholas Gustafsson in remembrance of him as well. So we'll cut it short as we keep raining here today. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Again, our 2020 celebration is not normal, what we're used to, but we wanted to make sure that we had the Graveside Memorial Service because that is normal. That is a normal piece of honoring the legacy and the life of Joseph Lee Haywood. being a strong community member, such as the members we have today doing their part of the COVID crisis. So with that, thank you everybody for being here today. We appreciate you coming out in this rainy weather, but we believe that this was probably one of the most important pieces of our 2021 Day celebration this coming Saturday. So thank you all.